Alright, and welcome to this class. In this tutorial, I'm going to teach us about Python exceptions, how to work with exception, how to generate or raise your own exception as a programmer. So what is an exception, or what are exceptions? Exceptions are errors that occur during runtime of a program as a result of disruption or abnormalities in the normal flow of the program. Exceptions are errors that occur during runtime of a program as a result of disruption or abnormalities in the normal flow of the program. When an exception occurs during a program runtime, this exception will be handled immediately by the compiler, or the program will completely stop executing because the compiler has run into a situation or a condition which cannot be handled. So exception is just like an error. It is an error that occurs during the runtime of a program. So let me do something like this. For example, if I want to print this, let's say we print hello. Print hello. As you can see, this is not the right syntax for this. So an exception will be raised for name error. If I run the program, you see now, look at, we have name error. Name hello is not what defined. This one is what we call that's what we call exception. You know, any string must be defined within quotation marks, be it double or single quotes. Strings must always be defined within quotation marks. If I run the program again, you see the code will be successfully executed. There's no error. So that's what we call exception. That name error, that's what we call exception in Python programming. There are two categories of errors that can occur during the program runtime: either syntax error or an exception. Syntax error is different from exception. Syntax error is as a result of wrong syntax, like the one we did here without using the quote. This one is an exception. The error that arises as a result of wrong syntax is what we call syntax error. But in this case, this is an exception. You can see name error, it is an exception. Let me make an example of syntax error. If I define num, let's say num equals 10, and then use the conditional statement if num less than 5, is num less than 5 without the colon, then you now come down and print. You know, this is a wrong syntax. You now come down and print true. Print true. Now if I run the program, you can see we have syntax error. Can you see? So these are the two major types or categories of error that can occur during the runtime of a program: syntax error and exception. That first one was exception. The error that was generated then was an exception, while this one is called syntax error. As you can see, it's an invalid or syntax, and you can see the position that the arrow pointing up. You know, while using conditional statement, you must add colon. It is a must to complete the syntax and the distance, and then colon. After the colon, then Python will automatically give us an indentation. You can see. So this one, if I run the program, you can see what we have here. So nothing is printed at the output because num1 is not what less than 5. So this, you know, if num1 is less than 15, let's use 15. Print true. You can see true is printed at the output here. So this is how it works. This is what we call syntax error and exception. This one I just did here is called syntax error because of the error was generated as a result of wrong syntax. So if I create another var, let's say my var, then I'll assign value into it. My var equals greetings, then something like this. Okay, and then if I use conditional statement, if g in my var, if g in my var, print okay. I'll change it. I want to give you an example of exception. I've shown you an example of syntax error. Now you know that Python is case sensitive. So if I run the program, You can see name error. This is what we call exception. These are the two categories of errors that can occur, either an exception or a syntax error. If it is a syntax error, it will indicate syntax error. But if it's just an ordinary exception, then the type of exception will be indicated, because there are different types of exceptions. We have the name error exception and so many of them. So this one is a name error exception because the name, my var, is not what defined. So if I now change this to uppercase as the normal name of the variable which I defined initially, you will see that OK is printed here because actually we have the character G in our strings. So is it understood? These are the two categories of error that can occur during the runtime of a program. And then how to handle exceptions. We can handle an exception in a program when a particular condition is not certain or is not okay. And then we handle exceptions by using the try statement or clause and then the except statement or clause. You can call it statement or clause. This is what I mean. The try statement, you can see you have the try statement and the except statement. Except, you can see there are color changes because they are keywords. So these are the two clauses or statements which we use in handling exception. We use the try clause to test run or examine a block of code or a particular set of programs if it is okay or not. Then if it is okay, then the program will be executed and will not have any exception. But if that is not okay, then we now use the except clause or statement to raise an exception. That is, if a particular code in the try block is not certain, then an exception will be made. This is how it works. Try, then followed by a column. This is the syntax for handling exception using the try clause or statement. You write the try keyword, then followed by a column. And let me define that variable again. My var equals greetings. My var equals greetings. I'll now use the conditional statement now. If G in my var, if G in my var, you can see that the my var variable here and the main my var variable is not the same because of upper cases and lower cases, so they are not the same. So if G in my var, then print OK, now come down and use the except clause, except name error, because there is name error exception. This is the syntax. Then print your variable name doesn't align. So we use the try block, the try clause or statement to test run this program. We are telling the compiler to test run the code under the try block or within the try clause. Then if it's certain, it should print OK. But if that is not certain, if there's anything wrong, then we'll now use the except clause to raise an exception. So if I run this program, you can see your variable name doesn't align. You can see how it works. So this is how to work with exception. This is how to handle exception. And so we can also use more than one exception in a particular block. Like if I do something like this, okay, so inside the try block, if I now print that hello that I printed last time, we're telling the compiler to try this program if it is certain. If it's not, then we'll raise an exception under the except clause. We'll now print hello is not defined. Hello is not defined. This is how to handle exception. You can see now hello is not defined. If the program in the try block is certain, that will not be printed. It won't be printed. You can see hello is printed because there is no what error. But it is when there is error in the try block that the exception, the program in the except clause, will be executed. Is it understood? So that's how to handle exception basically in Python. We can use more than one except clauses in one try clause. How do you do that? The try clause is the main program where you write your main code. Then we now use the except block to compare, so that if there is any error in the try block, an exception will be raised, then the program will be executed. You can use more than one except clauses in a single try block. So if we have try, then my var, I'll create that variable again. My var equals greetings. Okay. Then if g in my var, let me use lower cases so that it won't be the same. Okay, if g in my var, then print okay, except name error. Except name error, print variable name does not align. Variable name not align. Okay, this is the first exception clause. You can use more than one exception clause in a single try block, except print something went wrong. Print something went wrong. Okay, something like this. So if I run the program, you can see what okay is what printed. Okay is what printed because the name of the variable are the same. But if I change this to a lowercase, to make the name of the variable not the same, you can see the except block will be, you can see variable name not what align. Is it understood? Variable name not align. Then you can also print something went wrong. So these are to use more than one except clauses, how to use two or more except clauses in a single try block or statement. Then we can as well use the else keyword to define a statement to be executed if no error is raised. For example, if no error is raised, then we can use the else statement to determine or define the statement, the program to be executed. So if we have something like this, inside the try block, okay, I'll say try, then inside the try block I'll define num. I say num1 equals int, then input enter any number, then I'll use the conditional statement if num1 less than 0, if num1 less than 0, print enter a valid number greater than 0, except value error, except value error. Except value error, print please enter an integer. Print please enter an integer. Else, then now use the else statement here. Please enter an integer, else Then inside the else block, inside the else condition, we'll now print you entered a valid number. You entered a valid number. Alright, so take a look at the code, go through the code. In the try block, we define a value to accept data from the user. Any number that the user enter, if the number is less than 0, that is minus any number. If it's not less than 0, then print enter a valid number. If the user enter an alphabet which is not a number, then it will print the except clause. Program under it will be executed. Else print you entered a valid number. So let's run the program and see. You can see enter a number. Let me give some space. Okay, so if I run the program again, you can see enter any number. If I enter minus 12, let me enter 12 first. You can see you entered a valid number. Okay, let me run the program again and enter minus 2. You can see enter a valid number greater than what? 0. You understand? So this is how it works. Enter a valid number greater than what? 0, then followed by the else condition immediately. So this is how it works. As a Python developer, you can raise an exception as well. As a Python developer, you can raise an exception. Like if a condition is not certain or met, we use the raise keyword to raise or generate an exception. In that case, I'll remove this except block. If no one less than equals 0, then raise exception. Use the raise keyword. You can see the color change because it's a keyword. Raise exception. Then inside the exception parentheses, you now print or define what you want the user to get. Please enter a number greater than what? 0. We'll return to the user. We'll raise an exception case to tell the user, hey, enter a valid number which is greater than what? 0. Enter a number greater than 0. That is, if the user enter a number that is less than 0, then we'll now raise this exception. Okay. In using the raise keyword, we don't use the try and except block. We don't use it. So we'll now print else. Else print you entered a valid number. This is how to raise an exception. This is how to use the raise keyword. If I run the program and then enter any number, if I enter 12, you can see you entered a valid number. The program in the else block has been printed successfully because the number is greater than 0. But if I enter a number less than 0, which is minus 2, you can see exception. You can see this exception. Please enter a number greater than what? 0. These are to raise your own exception as a programmer. Using the raise keyword is very important. So as a Python programmer, you need to know how to raise an exception while programming. Is very important. Then as well, we have different types of exception. Let's talk of types of exception. We have many and different types of Python built-in exceptions. Python have many and different types of built-in exceptions. So to get the type of built-in exception, which I cannot treat them one by one, so I'll just give you a code that will help you to generate all the types of built-in Python exception which we have. We have the name error exception, we have the value error exception, and so many of them. So if you want to get all the types, we use this program, print, then inside the print parentheses, there, then local. This code will automatically raise or generate all the types of exception of Python built-in exception. all the types of Python built-in exceptions. Then we'll now use the built-ins. Then this code will generate all the types of Python built-in exceptions. Print into local functions, locals. There should be S here. Locals. Okay. Then inside the square bracket, double underscore, then built-ins, double underscore in single quotation mark. So this, if I run the program, you can see all the types of exception will be printed, unexpected error while passing. So if let me go back, there's a problem there. Sorry, I forgot to close this other bracket. So if I run the program, you can see all the number of exception we have here in Python. These are all the types of exception. You can see we have arithmetic error exception, we have assertion error, we have attribute error, we have base exception, we have blocking IO error, and so on. We have broken pipe error. So these are all the types of Python built-in exception that can be raised during program runtime if a particular condition is defaulted or is not certain. The type of program you run which is not met determine the type of exception you will run into during the runtime of your program. So just practice this and know how it works. Thank you, and see you in the next class.